Hi, everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're going to have a discussion with Andre. I'm going to let her pronounce her last name. So, over to you.
Hello, Justin, and hello, everyone who's listening. My name is Indre Jackevičiūtė. I am Lithuanian by origin, and I am currently based in Copenhagen, Denmark.
So, also, can you talk about some of the things you're doing over in Denmark and also discuss your definition of sustainability as well as your top two SDGs?
Totally, and thanks a lot for asking me this. I am a freelance sustainability consultant, uh, and I aim at introducing circular and sustainable business models within fashion industry primarily, but it could be any consumer goods industry. Um, so I have been in the industry for a bit over 2 years, and I am also running a podcast, which is called Refashion. And in the podcast, I talk about circular business models, circular fashion in particular, and how can everyone participate in the movement, what companies are already doing something within those realms. And I try to advocate more conscious lifestyle in general.
Excellent. So, what's your definition of sustainability and what's your top two SDGs?
Right. So I use the definition for sustainability, the one which is provided by United Nations, and that is the development that meets the needs of the present generation without compromising on the future generation needs. So that's the same definition that I follow. And the top two SDGs for me would be number three, good health and well-being, and number 12, responsible consumption and production. The reason why I personally advocate those two is because if you are, first of all, not well yourself, it's hard to contribute to a bigger movement, to be a positive person for the society, and you struggle to perform your job well. So for me, being in good health and have great well-being, that's the key priority as for on a personal level, which then leads to success on all the other areas. And when we talk about number 12, responsible consumption and production, I think that also lays out the whole framework for the industry. And if you really target and aim to ensure that, that covers a lot of other SDGs, which could be defending life on land and taking care of life below water. Um, you also make sure that you have a diverse employee space and all the other matters. So if every company had the same goal in mind, we would naturally make the whole network of the like-minded companies, and it would benefit overall the business and the society.
Excellent, excellent. And I love asking that question because everyone has a different answer on their top two, SDGs. And I say it time and time again. I say it on every single one of these interviews. In that we need that. We need those varying priorities. And but the thing is, we see is that all of these are interconnected. As you said, without health and well-being, we don't have the energy or the people to address these other SDGs. So all of these things are interconnected. So thank you for that. So as you are a freelance consultant within the fashion industry in the area of sustainability, can you talk a little bit about some work that you've done there and some of the highlights as well as some of the struggles that you've seen within that industry?
Right. So I would say that I had a couple of projects within sustainability reporting, and I have been talking to the companies upon circular business models introduction within the industry. So that's what I have done so far. And as per my observation, sustainability is a valid topic. It is very important topic. A lot of companies are really looking into that. Recently, they have been looking more into circular fashion, circular economy concept. There are a lot of startups coming up, and I would say even though it is an important topic, it is still not mainstream. A lot of companies interpret their numbers differently, so it is hard to find a consensus. And usually what happens is that sustainability managers iron out the narrative in the way that they would like to convey the message. So it is not greenwashing because it is backed up by the data, but at the same time it is greenwashing because the narrative doesn't really depict the whole truth.
That's very interesting. And for this sustainability reporting, this is one thing that I think a lot about. It's one thing I talk a lot about, in that these sustainability reports are only frameworks, right? They're only suggestions, right? They're not really mandated. And what's your thoughts on, because also another thing is these reports in some countries, especially in the US, they're voluntary. So if they're voluntary, they're not being audited. So it's my argument in that unless they're audited by a third party, an unbiased third party, not the Deloitte that already do your financial audits, a sustainability third party, well, I believe it. So what's your thoughts on that?
Right. So I think it's very well noted upon that. Um, Overall, I would say that oh my God, I just had a thought in mind. But as for sustainability reportings, as you correctly pointed, they are not mandated. And it is also non-financial reporting. So
Mhm.
some companies would be required to give the reports because their board members, they ask that. But since it is voluntary, it's also voluntary here in Europe. So it's upon the choice of the company. And I would also like to see more of like required reports for sustainability
Mhm.
to be asked from the companies. And I would also like to see that not only for the biggest companies, but also on small, medium sized enterprises, so
Mhm.
that we would be all talking the same language and we would have different metrics to compare the companies among themselves. And the last thing is that, again, as you correctly pointed, it is not required to be audited. This is also a requirement or an aspect that GRI, Global Reporting Initiative, is stating as well. They themselves do not require an external audit on the sustainability reportings, which I myself, I also found it weird when I was doing the course. That you can write down your narrative, you adhere to the requirements, the standards, and that's about it. And then you can claim that it is GRI compliant. I would assume that it is not without a reason that the GRI initiative thought through that, and they trust in their partners to teach sustainability reporters to do that properly. But it still raises a small red flag, so to say, that the reports are not required to be audited. So if it is audited by the audit company that you are already using for the financial reports, I think it's still better than nothing. But at
Mhm.
the same time, I would also like to see an independent audit unit, which could come into the place and help the companies, because sometimes they also have a lot of questions and they don't get answered. So it could be a win-win, and it would be a win-win for the industry and also for the companies, so that they would perform better.
Right. Yeah, I want to keep on with this discussion because I haven't really had anyone to uh, discuss this topic, and it's one topic that needs to be discussed. So, as I said, there needs to be a third party auditing firm, if you will, to audit these sustainability reports. But the more I look into it, this would be a massive undertaking in that those particular auditors would have to have deep experience in fashion, deep experience in healthcare, deep experience in food and beverage, right? To look at these reports, have a knowledge of the industry, of the processes, of their supply chains, in order to ask those questions that are that are going to uncover those true issues at hand, right? So, what's your thoughts on that? And also another question is, so do you primarily work with GRI, or do you also work with SASB and those other types of sustainability reports?
So I would say it would be great if we had a third party as an auditors. I would like to then have different divisions for different industries so that the people working there could stay up to date of what's going on in the industry. A side note to that would be that, as we know, fashion is not the most transparent industry. So it's also very hard. There are a lot of issues within the supply chain that would be hard to evaluate and go into very nitty gritty of that. So I think that would be the very main challenge. But to overcome that, we definitely would need specialized people within that auditing firm. I myself, I only work with GRI reporting, and it would be hard for me to comment on other reporting tools.
All right, excellent, excellent. So given that you primarily work with GRI, what do you think are the highlights and the benefits, and what are the areas for improvement? This is my selfish for my selfish knowledge.
That's totally fair. I think the biggest benefit of having GRI reporting is that it is global. It is the blueprint for all over the world, and you can just um, have the same principles. You know how the report will be structured, how to guide, and there are even some best practices. So it's very helpful. We are then talking the same language across the organizations, across the world. Some key improvement areas I would identify as, again, maybe going to the industries so that it would be more tailored to different industries, that the materiality topics could be somewhat already identified, so that there would be guidance in each industry. There could be more support from GRI. I would like to get that, so that there would be an auditing unit in their organization, for example. And maybe some best practice reports. Otherwise, I think it's very personal to the companies. Of course, it's a lot about staying on top of what is going on in the industry, and it's up to you as a company what topics do you want to report. And GRI supports and really asks you to be proactive and address the issues that are going on. But the reason that you might issue sustainability reports at different times, it may also make it harder for those sustainability reports to be compared across different companies. So even if it's, let's say, fashion industry, companies choose whenever they want to issue those reports. So the topics that they address can also be different of industry or company from company. So I would still say there are a lot of improvement areas overall.
Okay, excellent. So whenever you said that they want organizations to be proactive, what do you mean by that?
So they encourage the companies to stay on top of what is going on in the industry. If there was some pay up scandal like it was in 2020, they would like to see the companies to picking up the topic and saying, here was what was going on, this is what we did, or how we avoided it, or how we prevented, how we dealt with it. If there was something else going on, let's say, now I'm just making it up, but like child labor as an important topic in that year, the company should be proactively picking up the topic and talking about it, instead of trying to stick to the safe materiality topics and just report on the usual things that they would normally report.
Excellent, excellent. So also whenever I'm speaking with experts in sustainability, I always ask them, you know, if someone were to approach you and say, okay, I want to be sustainable, but where do I start? You know, where are you going to? What pieces of advice, what gems are you going to provide to them?
That's a very good question. It really depends who is asking. If that was an individual person, I think I would suggest to look up some of the influential speakers or some people who advocate that. But if that was the company, because we are now talking in the company um, context, I would suggest to start off with UN SDGs. I think it's a brilliant framework so that you could get started, get familiarized with the issues in the industry and what is going on. And then once you identify the sustainable development goals relevant to your company, dig deeper into those aspects and also identify what's more in these topics. Um, Further down the line, I would also suggest to pick up some of the um, sustainability reports in the industry, just to also get a good overview of what are the topics, what are people talking about, and make your own opinion of what is relevant to your company, and identify the topics and then start investigating deeper into each of them.
Excellent, excellent. So I, I was getting toward the end, but I think I'm going to back up a little bit in that whenever you mentioned the circular business models and you working with a lot of fashion startups in terms of circularity, can you briefly touch on that and talk about some of the things, some of the innovations that you're currently seeing in the industry?
I think there is a lot of innovation going on right now in circular fashion landscape. I would say primary two or three topics could be made to measure, made to order solutions where you first get yourself measured digitally, and then you place the order, and then you get the custom-made item for you. Second trend I would identify as digital solutions in general in fashion, whether it is artificial intelligence or virtual reality dresses or any other CGI models, to actually designing the whole collection by using the design systems, and only then you produce the actual garments. So in that way, you also avoid a lot of waste, and you have more flexibility to experiment with the collection. And the third stream I would identify as dealing with waste. So in particular, either designing from waste into upcycled items, or just using the dead stock materials and creating something out of that. Or another aspect of dealing with waste would be take back systems for the companies, and that is a very tricky topic because not a lot of companies really wants to think about the take back systems. There are some startups who deal with that, and they, for example, suggest rental as a service. So that means that they don't produce the items themselves, but they rent out the garments, and they can the people then pay per month on the subscription, and they get their clothes. And there are some startups who deal with secondhand items and put them into the rental service, others take new items and put them into subscription service. So that is in a way also working with the waste and making it circular system, which is quite a new initiative still.
Yeah, yeah. And so I want you to talk about that take back system because we have, if you've heard of Rent a Runway here in the US,
Yeah.
there've been some individuals that you're never going to win in terms of sustainability, in my opinion, because you have people to say, oh, well, these take back systems are using so much water to wash the garments and all the energy of the washing machines and the dryers and things like that. But in my opinion, you're not exposing, yourself to child labor, to modern slavery, and making these garments with fast fashion and things like that. And you are introducing this circularity within the fashion supply chain. So you're always gonna have arguments, but in your opinion, do you see a future for this take back system? Do you see this type of industry expanding?
I would really like to see it expanding. That's my dream and wish to see that in the upcoming years. You're right. Yes, it then turns into more of like um, cleaning and taking care of the items. But at the same time, we are not extracting the raw materials. We are just using the items that we have. And in the first place, we designed them so that they would last longer. And that's the whole essence. So then the utilization rate of the same garment increases, and we get the money return, which is higher because you only produce the item once and then you just make it work for you, so to say. Otherwise you lose the connection with the person, and the item ends up in the landfill. Sometimes it just ends up as in a new condition. But with the rental systems, it is definitely a way to utilize the resources that we already have. People already do that to some extent on their own when they swap their clothes with friends, when they resell them, but it is usually very difficult to do it on the individual level. So if we have the system, it's more efficient. It's taking care of all the difficult parts for us, and then it's making it functioning much better and much more efficiently again.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. So we are going to wrap up now. So do you have any closing thoughts, any closing statements, any additional hints and tips on people trying to get into this sustainability space, regardless of the industry in which they're in?
I would say every individual effort counts, and it doesn't matter where you start and how big of the um, input do you put. So it really doesn't matter whether you go hardcore sustainability and practices, or do you just start something small like recycling or sorting your items or making sure that your clothes reaches the recycling facilities instead of the landfill. It's really good to stay optimistic and inspired. So I would really suggest to find people or channels where people advocate that on a daily basis, and where you can get the community around you and get the knowledge sharing, and just be in the same environment, support yourself with those initiatives, and you will gradually turn into more sustainable lifestyle, and that's going to be inevitable.
Yeah. All right. So thank you for your time today. And where can people find you?
They can find me on my conscious underscore living Instagram page. They can find me on LinkedIn if you search Indre Jackevičiūtė. Yes, that's where they can find me. And if you want to listen more to my voice, go and check it out, the Refashion podcast.
Oh, yes, yes. Yeah, I was gonna have you plug that again. So what platforms is that podcast on?
It's on all major streaming platforms. It's on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, and Red Circle is the hosting service.
All right, excellent. So thank you for your time, and until next time, we will see you again. Thanks everyone.
Thank you very much.